Well, I'm also very, very pleased to introduce our next speaker. I know Dr. Venkateswaran quite well now. She's been at the NSF EPSCoR program for several years. She is an experimental condensed matter physicist, which I'm also happy to say, because at one time in my career, I think I was one of those. Her research experience is in optical properties of materials using spectroscopic and high-pressure techniques. She received her PhD from the University of Missouri-Columbia, so at least what used to be a Big 12 institution. She was a guest scientist at the Max Planck Institute for Solid-State Physics in Stuttgart, Germany, and a research associate at the State University of New York at Buffalo. Before joining the National Science Foundation, she was a professor of physics at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan for some period of time. She's currently a program officer in the Office of EPSCoR and has been with that now for over 7 years. Prior to joining the EPSCoR program, she was a program director in the Condensed Matter Directorate and the Office of Special Programs in the Division of Materials Research. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Uma Venkateswaran.
Good afternoon. It's indeed a pleasure to be here in Oklahoma today and talk to you a little bit about the current ongoing things in NSF. Kelvin Dragemeyer gave a very good overview of what NSF is, and also he stressed the importance of thinking about the complex problems broadly in terms of including people from all disciplines, different backgrounds to get the problems solved. And that sets a very good stage for my talk. In my talk, what I will do is simply to go into a few of the programs that he mentioned and a few others, and give you information as to where you can get further information on those programs. So here is the outline of my talk. I'd give initially some policy and procedure updates, particularly with respect to the merit review that goes on within NSF for proposals, and then talk about a few funding opportunities, and then close with some opportunities for energy in NSF and how collaborations among other EPSCoR jurisdictions. I have about 20 slides, and I have about less than 15 minutes to go through them. So I'm not going to explain each slide in detail, but this talk will be available to you, the presentation slides will be available to you on the conference website afterwards, so you can go and look at those information that is in there, and then as Kelvin said, you can go to NSF website and figure out all the further information. So take this talk as an overview where you can, which tells you where to go for information. That's about what I can do in about less than 15 minutes from now. Okay. About the policy procedure and updates, I want to touch upon 2 points. One is the ARA acceleration. This is the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, or popularly called the stimulus funding. And the Office of Management and Budget has told us that most of this money has to be spent before September 2013. So those of you who received your ARA awards, be aware of that, and NSF is also asking you to accelerate expenditures in a responsible way in order to complete the project completely as proposed before September 2013. Waiver requests will be very, very rare, and only for those projects that were originally awarded beyond those periods. For example, career 5-year awards were made in fiscal 09 and 10. Those things will be the only ones that will have the waivers. So keep those in mind, and your C2 award is an ARA award. One of the EPSCoR awards, Research Infrastructure Improvement Award, and that will come in that category. Other point I want to talk to you about is the NSF merit review. the National Science Board had a task force to, NSF prides itself with the merit review that goes on for all the proposals we get in there. But it's been nearly over 13 years since those merit review criteria had been set, and we've been doing that. And so there was just a thought as to evaluate or examine what's going on with these review criteria. So the National Science Board had a task force to look at all these things, and they came up with a few guiding principles, review criteria, and some review elements. The guiding principles continue to be highest quality of research and education proposals, contribute, how does it contribute to achieving societal goals, and also look into meaningful assessment and evaluation of the impacts that those activities render. And the merit review criteria will continue to be the two criteria, the intellectual merit and broader impact, but the way that they are going to be implemented will focus on these 5 review elements for each of those criteria. And the report of that detailed report was published, and I give you the URL. If anybody is interested, you can go and look at it in detail. And what NSF is considering now is to develop an implementation plan with respect to the recommendations in this report and revised criteria description. I mean, it's the same criteria. Don't be alarmed. It's still the intellectual merit and the broader impact, with broadening participation also as important, inclusive in these activities, and revised criteria descriptions and the principles, and these will be published in our proposal and awards policies and procedures guide as we go along. So stay tuned on those things. And another part is the review process itself. That is how, the number of proposals, increasing number of proposals forever, workload gets increased. So we wanted to look at the review process, and there is a working group that came up with some provisional recommendations, particularly to look at increased use of virtual panels. Right, currently we use about 1% of the merit review, mostly panels, but headquartered at NSF, whereas try to increase, use technology to do the merit review process, increase it a little bit more. This also helps us in terms of, keeping our budget for the other activities tight. And then also look at using preliminary proposals as a general way, in some of the core programs before, it's a lot of work for the PIs as well as for us to review a lot of proposals, but use preliminary proposals as a means to find out what ideas will fly, because the success rate at NSF is never more than 25% at any time. So consider all those things. And then automated compliance checking is something that we are also looking at. Proposals are sometimes returned without review because they are not compliant with the guidelines. And so produce some tools, cyber tools, tools that would help people to do that. We spend an enormous amount of time checking the compliance once the proposals come into NSF. Instead of that, if you would make it an automatic tool, develop a tool that would test it and make it available to the user community so that you can test it even before you submit and things like that. Those are the kind of thoughts that are going on within NSF. And the next step will be, there will be some pilot programs that will be launched. Many of you may be already aware that Biological Sciences Division went ahead with the pre-proposal kind of a use of more pre-proposals even this fiscal year, and we will look at the, their experience using those kind of things in order to implement it in several other programs. So that's about the updates, and then I'm moving on to the funding opportunities in here. I have a quote here from our director, Subra Suresh, which says, science without borders. So cross the disciplinary barriers, cross background, so include pretty much in line with what Kelvin has ended his talk with, same kind of an idea. So the concept of one NSF, NSF for always had been having cross-cutting programs. That is, several of these directorates, divisions, and programs have been collaborating in terms of co-reviewing, co-funding, and all those kind of things. But under this one NSF umbrella, what happens is those kind of activities and any other new initiatives we have get much better visibility and coordination both within NSF and outside NSF. And that's, and I will explain, describe a few programs that came, under those one NSF. Well, one main thing is SEAS, which you already heard in the previous talk. It's a science, engineering, and education for sustainability. NSF website has a very good definition of sustainability in connection to what you heard in the panel, how the human dimension plays a very important role in terms of looking at this. So it's a 5-year kind of an investment area. Has got FY 10 and 11 had some Dear Colleague letters and some of the programs initiated, and FY 12 has got a lot more. If you would visit any of these websites listed in here, you will find the whole details. I outline here a few of those activities that are listed under the SEAS initiative. Sustainability Research Networks, which is SRN, and I give you a NSF solicitation number, which will give you all the details about what that competition is about, for that proposal submission requires, and so on. Even if the deadline or the due date for this particular fiscal year is over, you can still read that and learn about that program if you are planning to submit a proposal in that area anytime future. Further modifications will be modifications in response to the experience we had running these competitions the first year. But you could always get a whole idea of what that program is about by going through those solicitations. And SEAS Fellows Program is another one which targets junior researchers, particularly people within 4 years after their PhD and so on. And then the Sustainable Energy Pathways, that's another program which may be connected to most of what's going on with this conference's topic. And then we have the PIRE, which is the Partnership for Research, International Research and Education. That's an OISE, the Office of International Science and Education, Science and Engineering, that office's project, but this year they have a SEAS projects as a track. So you have that solicitation coming up, that's given there. And then research coordination and network, about which you heard in the previous talk. And then the couple human and natural system, which is connected to the social sciences and any other topic that you are looking at, your discipline. How do you connect it to human response in terms of energy or any other climate change and so on that you're thinking about? And that's the CNH SES projects, the focus. The program has been running for some time, but then the focus is on sustainability related kind of work, and then climate change related opportunities, as well as dimensions of biodiversity are all under the SEAS initiative listed in those websites. Another part I want to touch upon is the cyber infrastructure framework for the 21st century, or what's called CIF 21 within NSF. This initiative has been going on for some time with several of the working groups that focused on data, software, connectivity, and so on, broadband accessibility, and so on and so forth. Had been working for several years, and then in the last few years, some programs have been rolled out, and this one is CIF 21. That website gives you a lot more information as to how you can use computational thinking and computationally involve the sciences. And so particularly, I would like to bring your attention to some of the publications and the Dear Colleague letters issued by various directorates, and also the cyber infrastructure in support of biological sciences. And then the recently announced, you heard about IGERT in the previous talk, they announced a track on the computationally related graduate student training, that is the IGERT CIF 21 track, which is also a Dear Colleague letter. And then several programs that are getting rolled out are now is the computational and data-enabled science and engineering, that is CDS&E. That one has got a math and statistics one that ran last year. This year it's going to be with a collaboration with OCI, the Office of Cyber Infrastructure, and the Division of Mathematical Sciences, and the CDS&E Engineering, which was just announced last week. That solicitation came out just last week, and this is all education, computational and data-enabled science and engineering in various topics. So please take a look at them. And then software infrastructure for sustained innovation, that's another solicitation that may be of interest to you. And then the big data science and engineering, that's which was announced a week ago by our director with other agencies, the OSTP. So then you can see that core techniques and technologies is something. So CIF 21 and further programs will be coming out. So computationally enabled science and engineering, CDI, that is gone. Now CIF 21 will replace computational thinking, computationally intensive, data intensive science and engineering aspects. I also want to touch upon the Science Across Virtual Institutes, which is again an Office of International Science and Engineering, and they have a program that is virtual institutes, cutting borders across countries and so on. You can look at that solicitation. That will give you more information about what that is. EPSCoR is another one which has gotten mentioned a couple of times, once in the panel meeting as well as in the last talk. And here you have the contacts and where you can go and look for further information on that program. And Inspire was mentioned last time. And the goal here is these are all proposals that do not fit into existing programs. That is, if you have a really, really very novel, potentially transformative, not only in your field, either disciplinary or interdisciplinary kind of idea, and that you want to do that, and that, Inspire has got certain tracks. It starts with the $20 million in this fiscal year, and is expected, the request at least for the FY13 is $63 million. So under that Inspire umbrella, this year, what we rolled out was what's called Creative. All these acronyms have, as Kelvin mentioned, all these acronyms have some, we first get the acronym and then fit the words to meet the acronym. That's what we do in NSF most of the time. So here is Creative, and you see the solicitation number, the Dear Colleague letter number, and then you can go to that website. And in a nutshell, the proposal must be interdisciplinary and potentially transformative, and it should not be, existing programs is not the fit for this particular idea that you have, and then that website will give you how you can go about doing that. And then finally, I want to close with some ideas on the energy-related programs, which was very beautifully described by Kelvin, and which makes my job easy. I just give you here a few, C's is one where you can, sustainable energy pathways and other related programs, as well as there are lots and lots of center programs within NSF, the Science and Technology Centers, Engineering Research Center. Previous talk, you heard about the EFRI, which is also the Frontier Research Centers, and then the Materials Research Centers, and so on. So any of these centers with any idea you have in the science can be potential for these things, and several directorate-specific and foundation-wide programs are there, energy-related, and many of which you saw in the previous talk. I just list here a couple of engineering-related programs, as well as you have, I want to mention the Cedar Creek LTER, the Long-Term Ecological Research Project, which is very much to do with the switchgrass in line with the EPSCoR program that goes on in Oklahoma. And finally, I would like to say that EPSCoR Track 1, Research Infrastructure Improvement Program Track 1 awards, they focus on mainly, many of them are on sustainability, energy issues, climate change, bioinformatics, and nanoscience and technology related topics. And for energy, already as mentioned in the previous talk, Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Montana, North Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Puerto Rico, South Dakota, Tennessee, and so on, all have energy related. It could be biofuels, it could be solar, it could be wind energy, and so on. Renewable energy, all the time are there. So if you're looking for collaborations among the EPSCoR institutions, you can look at those projects. And with that, I close always in our talk. I'd like to give you where you can go and look for all the guidelines in terms of writing proposals and administering the awards, and then close that. Sorry if I took a little longer time.